when he was kind of crazy, and that keeps flashing up in my face and causing me to remember.
Well, when we were talking, I think it was either yesterday or before the show today, you're not portrayed in the movie, but you said that there were some lines in there, things that you had said?
Yeah, I had for years said to everybody that James Brown had said, the United States government is afraid of me because if I can start a riot, if I can calm a riot, I can start a riot. And Reverend Al Sharpton had said that in a PBS special. He had said, James Brown said that, he goes, the FBI, and this is really odd now. Now that I look back talking to you, he was on a PBS special of James Brown's life, and he was the interviewer, and he said, the FBI and our United States government is afraid of James Brown. And they said, why? And he looked into the camera and he said, because if he can calm a riot, he can start a riot. So the FBI is afraid of James Brown. And I thought to myself, sitting there last night, I thought, boy, Reverend, here you were working for him. Nobody knew more how afraid the federal government was of James Brown than you.
Yeah, I would love to hear all those Al Sharpton tapes, man. I could just imagine what's on there. But describe to us what the riots were. It was when Martin Luther King was shot. That's where there were riots. Where in D.C. was it?
Yes.
And those are the ones.
Oh, you mean where Martin Luther King was shot?
No. I want to know what were the riots that James Brown stopped?
They were in Alabama, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really? Okay. Because Howard Stern always talks about it, and he talks about Petey Greene, and I always thought it was Washington D.C. where he came to stop those riots.
And it may have been up in New York. I don't go back into all that,
Right.
So I know it, and then it's clouded with the man has done so much, and he, of course, he discussed it. He discussed with me many things. Buddy Dallas put into his affidavit that I was the keeper of his conscience. Because he shared so much, and I never went public with it. I've never. Even when I was taking him to the hospital and the doctors would tell me what they knew about his brain and everything, I never went public with it. And all of my documents and everything, they've never gone public. Until the New York Post the other day released some pictures. No pictures had existed on the internet of me and James Brown.
Really?
In all these years, no. I never released one, never let people see them, and even got into court one time, and a lawyer said, well, if she was this and that, why is nothing on the internet? And, of course, I never let it go. Back in the 80s, you could protect your privacy. You didn't have the computers and, downloading and all this, and I didn't feel my life. I've never felt my life really belonged much to the world, because I always felt like I never had much of a life, because the world judged me so harshly with this rape, and there's always going to be the he said, she said, and did this really happen, and did this happen, and I've taken a lot of abuse. I've taken a lot of cruelty, and I've cried myself to sleep over it, and there's been days that I didn't feel like I could live another day. And, it took the years. My life has been affiliated with James Brown for 30-something years, and I've never gotten away from it. And sadly, someone said to me the other day, when you die, Jackie, unfortunately, you will be linked to James Brown. And I thought, wow, that's true. When I die, they won't talk about the kids' charities, and they won't talk about what I've done. It will just be the girl that was, raped, or the girl that was, a part of James Brown.
Yeah.
And that's very sad. That is very, very sad.
Jackie?
Because yes.
Because this might, I don't know if Ed ever had another guest where we could actually ask this question, or he could ask this question. Like I was talking about, or you were saying you liked the Ray Charles movie because it was, showed some of the, real. It was very in detail. But with these biopic type movies, with these people that are now, whether you want to be connected to them or not, they're iconic. What is it like to go and see a movie about someone? Like, how accurate is it, and how surreal is it to go in and see someone portraying him?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to share a little secret with you, okay? And normally I wouldn't do this. But I had been called by Inside Edition, and they wanted to do an interview the other day, but they wanted me to take them to where I hid a lot of the memorabilia. And I said, no, that's not going to happen. So I had actually loaded my car up with memorabilia, okay? And I was taking it back to the place where it is hidden, okay? Well, I just pulled in and went to the movie, and here was all of this James Brown memorabilia sitting in the car. And I'm sitting in there watching the movie. Now, that is, and I'm thinking to myself, am I just dumb? Am I just dumb that I would leave a car and go watch a movie? Yeah, I did it. And then, of course, later I took it and put it back all in, but it was very weird sitting there and thinking, did I survive all this and live to tell it? I mean, did I survive this? Is this real?
Yeah, is it really happening? Right.
Yeah, because you don't look at, when I was working with him, you don't at that time, I don't think realize, when we did shows and we walked off and there was police escorts and there was always security, I didn't really look at it like that. I mean, I was just there to do what I had to do, and then I would leave. When we went to visit kids at the hospital, of course, the nurses would come running down the hallways, and they weren't running after me. They were running after him. But I didn't really look at it that way. I just kind of was like, well, this is kind of pain. We got to get in to see this kid. But, you don't look at it like you're sitting with a world icon, because you get to know that person, and that person's just a human being. And so he was just a human being to me, and I didn't see the iconic stuff around him, and I don't think I really even realized it until long after he died.
Well, what about like on Saturday Night Live when Eddie Murphy would do the impersonation?
Like
when you saw that, it was good, right? Like,
yeah.
What did James Brown think about it, first of all?
He loved it.
Oh, yeah, I bet, yeah.
He did love it. He did love that. Now, that I can tell you, and there were things about him that he loved. He loved his country. I'll tell you that. He loved the United States. For a man that fought so much law enforcement and the government and everything else, he loved his country. He was a very patriotic man. And for a man that had so many demons inside him, he was a very religious man. On my recordings with him, that is part of the evidence in my case, on my masters, on the songs, every song I did with him, I would always say, for the kids. And he would turn around and say, God bless you. And you hear that before every song. Yeah.
Living in America, from that, Rocky moment, and the fourth one, I believe, the installment. And that was such a huge scene at the time, and kind of towards, you know, the latter part of his, you know, his career. And I think a lot of people that are younger might remember that, you know, the later.
And I was there through that, the living in America, and to me it was just part of the day-to-day stuff. You know, I mean, we were busy doing things for kids, and you know what I'm saying? It was weird. I mean, the whole time was always surreal. Every day was filled with just constant catastrophes. I mean, you lived with your bag packed, waiting for a limousine. It was insane. It was insane. I didn't know if my call would come at 3, if Mr. Dallas would call me at 12 midnight, at 6 a.m. in the morning, but I always knew that call was coming, and you were always on hold for the fires. They never stopped. Buddy Dallas has been accused of forcing James Brown and from basically stealing from him, and I can tell you this. Buddy Dallas never stole a penny from James Brown. He built him. When James Brown didn't have money, he bought his home for him. When the IRS was going to take it, Buddy went and bought it off the auction block with his own money. Buddy Dallas literally was the light of James Brown, and it just it's really sad. I mean, to see no one, and they'll never be able to turn the lights on. Mick Jagger can bring all these people in, and this man out there that's now running the trust and all this other stuff. They'll never be able to turn these lights back on. The only person that can do that is Buddy Dallas.
Yeah, well, Buddy wasn't portrayed in the movie at all, right?
Nope. Not at all.
Okay.
They portrayed all kind of other people, though, but they didn't portray Buddy.
Well, were there people in the movie that didn't exist at all?
I was looking at the movie going, when did this happen?
Right.
You know, I mean, it was a continuous going, okay. You know, James Brown was born in a brothel. You know, they didn't really put that in there. I mean, and he took care of his father, and he took care of his mother. I mean, and that's not it. It makes it kind of look like the father disappeared, and he never saw his dad again, and that's not true. So, I mean, he took care of him, and it's weird. I mean, it's like, what in this is true? You know, what part of this is true? The high-speed chase, yeah, but they don't explain it. They just show him getting in a truck, and oddly enough, the truck, I know that truck so well, okay, because he drove it. He drove that little truck all over the place. You know that thing is sitting on his front yard still to this day?
Really?
Yeah. Still on his estate. And what's really even sicker is that, you know, they're trying to, the daughters want to have it a James Brown museum, but they've sold everything, and you see stuff going up on eBay, and, you know, it's just a mess. I mean, you talk about an octopus with tentacles. This is it. This is your ultimate, what is the story, The Rich and Famous, and the Greed? Who was it? Dominic Dunn did it. This is the classic thing: murder, greed, sex, drugs, blackmail, fraud. It's just, that's what it is. I mean, it is the Godfather.
Yeah, it sounds like the Michael
100%.
Jackson family too. You know, all the skullduggery that goes on, the father stealing all the money, and you know, all that craziness that went around that family as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, and that's another story in itself. I mean, the guy gives him milk, puts him to sleep with propanol, and he only goes to jail for 3 years. I mean, anybody else would be in Sing Sing, still